Today I'm going to talk to you about your culminating project in the Surreal unit, and that is the Surreal Collage. Your assignment is, after looking at the work of many contemporary surreal photographers, primarily Erik Johansson, it's now time for you to make your own. You're going to create an engaging, photorealistic surreal collage, meaning in that surreal world, is it believable? Obviously not something that you would see in our current world because that wouldn't be surreal. Your collage must combine at least 3 of your own photographs. It can be augmented with images from the internet, but only if it would not be possible for you to take that image. For example, if you wanted to put a tiger in it, obviously that's not something you can just go out and take a picture of, or Saturn in the sky. So you may use things from the internet, but make sure that is primarily your own imagery. Your image could be beautiful, haunting, have a sense of humor, or be thought-provoking. It could engage a social or political message if you'd like. Totally up to you. But for best results, no matter which kind of style you choose, your collage should follow these sort of rules. Photos should be taken from the same angle so that they do look like they go together in the same scene. And Erik Johansson was talking about that. Photos should have same or similar lighting. You can adjust that a little bit in Photoshop, but it's even more convincing if you were to be able to take those photographs from similar lighting angles for the different components. And your images must go together seamlessly, as carefully as possible. So ideas for surreal imagery, that's actually some of the most challenging part of this assignment for students. So here's some things to think about. And this is something that the surreal painters and surreal artists throughout time have sort of used these categories. So you could think about and play with scale. For example, make something that in reality is very small into something super large, like a pet coming out from behind a mountain range, or vice versa. Something very, very large, like a skyscraper fitting into a teacup. You could play with strange landscapes, create a landscape that's not of this earth, maybe put objects into it that are not recognizable or that don't necessarily belong. You could play with juxtaposition. Remember, juxtapose means putting 2 objects together that don't normally belong or not normally seen together. And you could also just play with distorting reality, stretching, twisting, rotating an object or a landscape into something unreal. And we'll have some examples of that. So activities to generate ideas. Like I said, sometimes it's hard to figure out what you want to do. So here are some things you could try. Search images of surreal photographers on the internet to get inspired or get ideas. Dream mapping. This is something the surrealists did. Do you have a reoccurring dream? Do you had a very, very vivid dream that could be interesting? What kind of images could you use from that source? You could look through some of your old photographs and images and then start playing with random combinations, or start thinking about, I have this amazing photograph of my backyard. What would be interesting, like if I put something in the backyard that I normally wouldn't have, or maybe, there's so many different options. It's hard to give lots of examples. And then free association games such as Exquisite Corpse or Pass the Poem, like we talked about in class. Those surrealists sort of did things like that. And you could play that game with friends and see if anything comes up that could be created in photography, in Photoshop. So here's some Photoshop tips and tools that would be useful. Very important, make sure your selections are careful and accurate. Zoom in so you get those edges very, very clean. Sometimes it takes time to get a clean selection, but in this case, it's going to be worth it. Playing with blending modes is great. Remember, that's in the layers palette, and it takes the top layer and blends it with the layer beneath in interesting and strange, unexpected ways. You definitely try to use similar angles and lighting between combined photos. I've mentioned that before, but it's just so crucial to making a convincing image. Add reflections and shadows if necessary. If it's on something, wet asphalt that's shiny or reflective, put in a reflection. If there is strong light source, put in those shadows. That can go a long way to making it look convincing. And this is going to take some time. take your time, be patient, have fun. I hope that this is fun. But expect to take it. This is not just a Photoshop tutorial or a quick Photoshop assignment. This is a culminating project, and so it will take more time. So put more time into it. One thing that can be really fun into your surreal imagery is specialty brushes. There's a website called Brush Easy, and it's literally brusheasy.com. And it has specialty brushes like fire, smoke, planets, clouds, sparkles, hundreds of things, spider webs. I mean, just so many different things. And it works like a brush. You load it into the brushes panel, and there are instructions on how to do that. And then imagine just clicking your brush once, and popping a beautiful Saturn or moon or something, giant moon, into the sky, or setting something on fire with the fire brush. We will do a demonstration of this in class. But there's also and there will also be a link to the Brush Easy website in Google Classroom. But it can be really fun. There are lots and lots of free brushes on that website, but keep in mind some of them are premium, so if it's asking you to buy it, just choose another one. Here are some student examples from the past. So careful selection of the clouds makes this work here. I believe this was the smudge tool, like in Photoshop, to sort of smudge the water down to make it look like it was dripping. So that's a good use, a good tool to keep in mind. Also keep in mind selection edges. If this was a hard edge, it might not look as good, this nice soft edge. Remember, you can kind of control the selection softness. Notice these last two have been in black and white, and I think one of the reasons why it works so well is because it is easier to blend images if it's black and white, right? If it's in color, different color casts and things, although that can be adjusted, definitely does make it a little trickier. So if you're struggling with that, try putting it in black and white. Sometimes that looks awesome. Here's a great combination of a photo that the student took of on a road trip. This is their car, so they took a photograph of their car. Photograph of a tennis ball. I think it was even their photograph of the night sky, although it would be okay with me if you found a cosmic kind of a photograph to add to that too. Great example of making a nice blend. This is really fun how there's Saturn around the tennis ball and also around the car. So excellent version there. This one could use maybe a couple more elements. It's pretty simple. It's just two photographs, but it is the student's photograph, so that's cool. And this technique is actually surprisingly easy. Imagine just selecting your landscape portion of the ocean landscape and then literally rotating that selection and lining it up perfectly. So this is fairly simple, but pretty effective technique. I think it would be really fun if it had a boat about to fall off, or something else added to the sky, but it's a really great base for adding more detail. Okay, don't hesitate to ask help from your teacher. If you have a vision in mind, we can help you realize it. And above all, I hope you have fun.